my name is Goulden. You've met me before. Former Chief Inspector with the Scottish Violence Reduction Unit, now retired, delivering MVP training quite a lot in England and Wales, and supporting colleagues in America to deliver the programme. And hopefully you've listened to the initial discussions, which involved myself and my good friend and colleague Alan Heisterkamp from Iowa, and you've really started to understand a bit more about what the programme is. Just like Alan, I believe in the programme 100%. It's been part of my life for the last 10 years because I know it works. The evidence tells us it works, not only in this country, but in the United States. I've sat and watched mentors deliver sessions and been blown away by their passion, by their knowledge, and by their ability to influence younger peers within the school environment. I've been told about occasions where mentors have shown great courage to support younger pupils at the school. Things have happened that they've been able to intervene and support younger pupils at the school. And I've witnessed the change in young people, from young men and young women who were displaying problematic behaviours before getting involved in the programme, to become individuals who, after some guidance and training, can deliver and lead conversations on sometimes complicated issues. They're showing great courage and great leadership. And I've witnessed first-hand young mentors deliver well-structured awareness sessions to politicians, to professionals, to parents about what MVP is, because the young people know that they need to engage all these different bodies and different people to support them in their work. And I've used the MVP program in a prison setting, and I've observed grown men talk about their own frustrations around conforming to lots of unhealthy norms. So it's a program that I really believe in, and hope that's going to come across in the last sessions and come across in this session as well. So today I'm joined by Jason Lowther, who works at Bulwell Academy in Nottingham. I first met Jason last year whilst delivering an initial training within the Nottingham area, supported by the Nottingham Notts VRU down there. And I was working with Jason at his school and some other schools in the Notts area. And I'm aware now that Jason is really one of these people that has grasped the programme and is now running with the programme. And my first tip for anybody getting involved, we require not only the leadership in the school to really support the programme, but we require that one person who is going to drive the programme forward in the school. So Jason, welcome to this conversation. Can you just maybe start by just telling us a bit more about yourself and what you do at the school?
Okay, thanks, Graham. So as Graham's already introduced, my name is Jason Lowther. I'm currently a Raising Standards mentor at Bulwell Academy School. Initially was a year manager. So my role within the school is to look after a whole year group. So I've got 165 year 11 students sort of under my sort of command and workship. So and ultimately I've now been promoted to Raising Standards. As Graham mentioned, I did his course sometime last year in MVP. Came across it by chance because another member of staff couldn't attend. And initially, I was hooked straight away. Naturally, within my role, I know all of the common issues that young people, young men especially, have within our community. We're a school of around 1,000 students in quite an inner city community with its own challenges like most communities have. And I just really was always looking for something that we could use as a model to sort of drive those important messages and sort of change the attitude and have some more healthy attitudes around some of the issues that our young people are having in school.
So let's ask the question. The first question when I ask teachers is, what challenges do you face in the school, and what challenges are young people facing in 2020 in your school and in UK society? What are the challenges? Well,
a lot similar to across school. I mean, social media is a massive problem, and I think it's a problem, and also within the training we get onto that discussion later. One of the main things that I think is the problem is we don't educate our students on how to use social media correctly. And I think that doesn't just come from us as educators. I think it comes from from parents as well. Myself as a parent with 3 young adults, who have gone through the social media area. My youngest is 19, so she's had those situations. I've seen those problems, as a parent. And yes, I agree, it was a difficult thing, a challenge the match. So that's a big thing, social media. I think that there's still a lot of anxieties, and I know there's a lot of challenges around some anxiety issues that a lot of young people have nowadays. You know, when, as you know, if you're similar age to me, Graham, when we was younger, it wasn't such a thing out there. It wasn't a common thing. You know, anxiety and, you know, a lot of mental health issues. You know, were sort of hidden away and pushed away, and, you know, didn't want to know. And I think one of the challenges, not just for students, I think they're comfortable. Some of them are quite comfortable discussing it, especially amongst their peers. I think some of it is as educators. I think we found it quite a challenge. I know I did. I've had to change my own aspect and how to sort of have those conversations with students. And I think finally, and I know you've discussed it on some of your videos, and it links back to social media and some anxieties as well, is some of the you know, expectations on, you know, our young men and our young women. I know one of the big things in our school, I think we have a lot of issues with young men, but I think we've equally within our school got as many, you know, issues in terms of media expectations on young girls as well. So I think they're really the big challenges that I see.
Yeah, you know, I talk a lot about Generation Z. That's who these young people are just now, and, you know, these are the activist generation. They're saving the planet, but these are the ones that are struggling with their mental health, and it's all about their relationships with each other, with themselves. You talked about, you know, young men growing up in a very pornified culture, sexually toxic culture, that is impacting on young women as well. So, you know, for me, I'm glad you mentioned, you know, looking at young men. But this isn't just about young men, it's every young person in the school. So the challenges you faced that you're talking about, social media, fitting in, expectations, mental health, all these issues as well. Would I be right in being saying that if we don't start to tackle and address these issues, these might impact negatively on success and attainment in the school?
Yeah, I think it's a massive issue. We don't impact on those issues. As I've already mentioned, in both genders, you know, both young boys and young girls. Because I think if we don't allow ourselves as educators as well to challenge those what we call, you know, sometimes called norms within schools, it's just going to become a bigger problem. And students, you know, as I've said, are comfortable discussing each other, but I think we need to know. I mean, I initially drove things separate slightly from MVP within our school, as I think a lot of schools might use it. It's just a one-page profile, where a student at the beginning of the year goes on and they type some things, information in there about, you know, how best to support them and what's important to them. Because I think as educators, I mean, I'm not a qualified teacher. My main role is around, you know, pastoral care and behaviour support and that side of it. But, you know, I'm lucky to be in that position. Yes, I may have quite a few students to look after. But, you know, those conversations and breaking down those barriers with those young people is important, and giving, you know, and allowing them to have a voice. And if we don't start, should I say, sort of start suppressing and allowing our young people to have those conversations, we're going to struggle. We're going to struggle.
Yeah. And I think, you know, I think the obvious question now is, you know, so why MVP? Why do you think MVP has been brought into your school, and what do you think it can do to support these challenges that you've talked about?
Yeah, I think it's the broadness, to be honest with you, Graham. You know, as you know, and I openly admit that, you know, you educated me on your training. You know, as it says, mental violence prevention. You know, I had my own perception as I did with very little knowledge on MVP when I initially went along. You know, you see the word violence, and initially you think straight away, you know, hitting physical side of violence, and I think we underestimate the emotional violence that is. You know, and there's a lot in the media at the moment around some of the issues we've got in violence, and, you know, due to the isolation. It's not always the physical; it's the mental, you know, strains that are being put on people, and that's both men and women, as I've said. But I think that was the killer one for me, so to speak. That's why I wanted MVP in our school. And obviously, when we went through the training, it's then how it delivers. I think also the second part of that, it's not about me having those discussions with our young people. It's about, you know, training up our own students, which I've got, you know, currently got 38 trained Year 10 students. You know, 3 members of staff alongside myself, who sort of, you know, the spearhead of it, because I was looking up at our principals gave me quite a lot of freedom with this. And they're the ones that are going into the classrooms and having those discussions with their year 7 peers, and starting those discussions, and around things around pornography. They're quite open having those discussions, and around the issues that we see in our corridors. So yeah, that's one of the things for me why I chose MVP.
So you highlighted there, Jason, that your principal has given you permission. Do you think that's important for schools to get the buy-in from the leader, from the head teacher, principal? Is that important for you?
Yeah, definitely, because I think, as I've probably mentioned previously, I need that freedom, and I need that responsibility to sort of run the program, and it's just like we expect ourselves and our young students to have those positive relationships with each other. We need to be allowed that freedom to let it grow. Because one of the things I took from the MVP training that I went upon to then take away to deliver some of our students is this isn't a quick fix. This is something that needs to grow over years. And become almost a new culture within school. We're trying to drive at Bulwell Academy a new ethos. We've got a new umbrella trust at the moment, which we've had for the last couple of years. And they're very keen to support the change, and try and change some of those challenges. So yeah, that's important that our principal gives us that freedom.
Yeah, I think it's important to stress too that MVP is a leadership program, and it requires leadership from young people. But first and foremost, leaders set the tone, they set the culture, they create the space for other leaders. Leaders create leaders, and I think having that buy-in from the top allows you the space and freedom to do your job, but then you allow the mentors to do their job as well. Everything we do, I do, you do, your principal does. It's like all roads lead to Rome. All roads lead to the mentor on the co-face doing the work, and that's important. So what does MVP look like in your school? You talked about 38 young people who are now mentors. Tell us a bit about what MVP looks like on the ground.
So the setup, how we've got it set up, we have lessons within our schools called ethics lessons, which are a bit like PCSHE. And within those lessons, students are at the moment taught various, ethical things that are going on, from politics to, social media and so on. And what we do, we have I get the mentors to pick a topic of what they think is something that's an ongoing issue. Now that can change. 1 week we might want to deliver something on, social media, on things that are going on in the corridor, some things that are going on in structured time, and some real problems that, go on in the school, whether it's around, sexual harassment or always being called gay or using various words. And we've developed a new thing alongside of that. We've also empowered our MVP mentors to do at the moment. We've also given the option to become student supervisors. So on a lunchtime and a break time, and some of our unstructured time, they're actually walking around our school, like, supporting us as member of staff. Not becoming, so to speak, what we don't want to create is vigilantes. But what they are prepared to do is they have discussions with young people, and they're the young people on the ground. It's like what you've mentioned previously, which is important. And I wish I brought up my first point about leadership. They are actually the leaders on this. All I have done is delivered the tools to them, and I've got the online tools that MVP gave me. It's some of the materials we've got to be able to deliver these sessions. But they are the leaders, and what they decide we deliver, they do, and that's delivered within those ethics lessons. And we also have a drop in as well in the lunchtime, where some of those students are not as confident, some of those mentors are not as confident to go around having discussions. We have a separate classroom where another member of staff sits, and the kids can drop in there and just have a chat if there's something they've got on their mind.
Yeah, I think it's important. I'm glad you said that. I sometimes think school's the last bastion of adult control. And what you're doing is you're giving some power to the students to deal with issues that are impacting on them. And actually, you've highlighted they actually want to talk about and discuss. And that's what I love about MVP. It's a simple project. It's a simple program. It doesn't aim to create experts. It just wants to give some power back to, I think, you know, I often use the phrase, there's a false consensus in the world where the majority of us feel like we're in the minority, and there's a minority of people who feel like they represent the majority. And that's wrong. We need to flip that. And what we're doing is we're just building the healthy team and giving them the tools, the skills, and the space to be leaders in the school. I think that's fantastic. And it's good that you mentioned, I'm a great believer in the mentor team that you recruit. Yeah, you'll have confident individuals who'll be great in the class, doing the sessions, but you'll have other mentors who'll be really good at just being there for people and supporting each other. And, you know, I think I highlighted at the training, it's a bit like the School of Rock, where you've got the band, you've got the guitarists, the drummers, you've got the keyboard players, but you've also got the manager, you've got the lighting technician, you've got the wardrobe person. You know, so the mentor team is all encompassing. It's the front line on, you're doing the sessions, it's someone doing some newsletters, somebody doing some artwork, or, you know, designing sort of drama, because we've got some students, you know, do drama work to really communicate MVP. So it's a big team, and let's never underestimate that. When these young people, the mentors are delivering the program, are doing this work, they're actually at the top of the learning pyramid, aren't they? Self-actualization, they're actually doing it, and they're going to learn more and more and more. So that is fantastic to see, and evidence suggests that mentors get so much out of this. You know, and would you suggest that the mentors are going to get skills that will help them in their future lives, at university and jobs, as parents? Would that be something you would agree with?
I think definitely, Graham. I mean, one of the buy-ins is, because naturally, as you know, in most schools, anything new, it holds its own challenges to get, you know, students involved. I mean, we was very, very lucky. I mean, I sort of put it out initially. I did an assembly to every year group. So, I mean, I didn't have an intention on recruiting year sevens, but I hope in I know in 3 or 4 years' time, this program will still be running, and those year sevens will be our future mentors. But how I sold it to them all the way across the school was some of the benefits they'll be getting out of this. You know, we have our own sixth form, which is expanding. A lot of the students want to come to our sixth form. And I explained to them, you know, even the sixth forms, they'll continue being mentors. But some of the changes, you know, I've got no problem in admitting, you know, it brought me to tears in the training. You know, some of the confidence and some of the changes that were coming out in these young people, some of the things that they were prepared to say to each other. You know, we went through our, you know, our learning agreement within there, and, you know, where everything was agreed, it was all kept confidential. You know, I shared some of my stories, and, you know, it was quite a very much a human connection. You know, and as you to bring it back, as what you said about, you know, different people, different mentors having different roles. We had a young lad, didn't want to speak, you know, but, you know, his IT skills, you know, his administrative skills are essential. You know, even still being part of that. So we've broke them down into, you know, like you say, little schools of rock with their own little bands, you know, and they deliver together. So not only did they get their training, we brought them together as small teams. So, you know, I think I've got 7 teams that I can rotate through different classes. So it's really good. And yeah, and the skills that I've said to them, they can take this on into colleges, universities, and it'll help them grow as young people, which is definitely, you know, the idea of this program as well.
There's no doubt that what you're saying is what I've seen in the United States, and I've seen in Scotland. So, you know, you highlighted there about this is a program you see lasting a length of time. What are the challenges for schools implementing MVP? What would you say are the challenges to help them? You know, what would you say the challenges are there?
Well, I think the first challenge is really admitting that you've got a problem and you need this. You know, admitting that there is finances, because I think so even some of the students at the schools across the country that claim they haven't, they will still have, you know, issues with their young people, having issues with social media. They'll still have their young men, you know, still having issues of how they're expected to act. So, you know, I think that's the first challenge, is identifying that. I think is having a great team, you know, within your school, a great working team. As I've mentioned initially, you know, I was looking at that my principal gave me allowed me a lot of freedom on this, but she's also supportive. And our leadership team, because I presented this to our leadership team when I came back off my training, and again, you know, that they loved it and they bought into it. And, you know, my colleagues within myself, because I've got other year managers, and one of the, now, currently going to be a racing standards mentor, my colleague, Mike Elland. I think you met him on one of the training sessions. He's equally going to be, working with me. We've got, one of the member of staff that works on as well. I think that's the key. So it's admitting there's an issue, finding out what that issue, working with that issue, and then developing a good leadership package around that. And I think the selling it to your students and getting your students on board, I think that's the easier part. It's buying into it.
So it's really good, Jason, that you started to, you're talking about this early implementation. My advice to schools back in the day was small steps. That this isn't, you talked about the program building, it's going to last for a long time. I don't want schools starting off so big that it becomes very burdening upon the school, overburdens the teachers and the staff. So that's a challenge for schools as well, not to go too quickly, too fast. But have you got any stories from the school? You're very early stages, but any stories that you've talked about mentors being more confident already, but anything else you want to share with at this point?
Yeah, definitely, Graham. I've got a couple of things on that. Mainly the mentors, because as you've mentioned, we were in quite early stages, but we have trained up 38 students within our year 10 year group, which is a good probably about 30% of the year group, which is a considerable amount of students. I know straight after the training, when I gave the students also the additional resource of being student supervisors and so on, the confidence I've seen them growing and their ability to just start engaging in conversations from across the whole school from year 7 to year 9, which I never saw you would never often see, it's, other professionals working in schools with stuff will know, unless they usually put, brothers and sisters. There's not a lot of communication between the year groups, but it was good to see. And also them feeding back to me, and it wasn't, them telling me that, so-and-so's having an argument. They'd often bring back an information, say, oh, sir, I've just had a conversation with this year 7 lad. He was getting picked on a little bit, or he's sitting being quiet, and I discussed his problem, and I'll go, okay, Debbie, how did that work out? And she'd say, oh yeah, he felt really good about himself. I said, that's brilliant, brilliant. And when I get her to, they've all got little logs as well, so I get them to log this information. Obviously I tell them to keep that confidential and try not to put names in there and so on. And finally, I've just mentioned Demi as well. Obviously, we're in these strange times at the moment. I put a challenge out to my mentors at the moment, because I'm still in communication with them through email and phone. And I said to them, look, have you got any real, because obviously, as I've mentioned previously, this is about, empowering these mentors to do the right thing for, our students within our schools. And she's created an absolute fantastic video. If anybody wants to go onto the Bulwell Academy Facebook site, if you're on it, or our Twitter site, it's on there. And she just delivers a real powerful personal message about how she's dealing with things at the moment. And also what is great, and it's definitely real, she puts out, how she can support, anybody else that's looking out for each other, and look out and, give some advice on how to look after each other, in these times, with our young people. I think it's brilliant.
I think it's really, a key part of MVP is, MVP, yeah, it's got a violence prevention message, but it's also importantly a relationship building message. And I highlight that in the first talk, is that your young mentors are building and developing healthy relationships. And I think the American educationalist James Comer uses his lovely quote, "No significant learning will take place without a significant relationship." And that's what you're doing. That's what Demi is doing, and the other mentors are doing. They're taking the time, they're leaning into the issues in your school, and they're there as the role models. You talked about culture a lot today, and you talked about how you're linking this into looking at ethics in the school. I think a challenge for schools is schools are very, very busy places, and they've got the curriculum, and MVP slides nicely into the curriculum. The PSE curriculum. I believe there's some mandatory expectations in schools to be delivering PHSE. I think from this year or next year, although I suppose this current time might delay things, but MVP fits nicely into that. And I think if schools are looking for a program to support PHSE in the schools, MVP will support that. Looking at health and well-being, social and mental well-being, to tackle all the issues that are are out there outside the school, that are coming into the school and that are impacting on welfare and attainment, educational attainment. And that's what, for me, that's what MVP does as well. Not only supports violence prevention in wider society, but it helps you to increase attainment levels amongst the young people. So I think for me, I'm hearing some really good stories. I loved the video from Demi. It was fantastic to see it. You're just doing a great job, Jason, in driving this program forward. And I'm sure when other schools start to do MVP, because I know there's other areas looking at MVP, your phone's going to be hot. People phoning you, looking for advice. And I'd love in the future for us to get mentors together, have that team, that big team, that big School of Rock team coming together to celebrate, because these young people are doing fantastic work, not only in the school, but they're supporting violence prevention across the whole of England and Wales. That's key. That's key for me. And so thank you for coming onto this conversation, and thank you for your leadership at this time. And I look forward to hearing more and more about what your school and the other schools in Notts are doing. For me, prevention of any issue starts in a community. For the police to come along, for services to come along, something's broken in that community. And what we're seeing in your school is a community in motion, a community coming together, owning a whole range of issues and addressing them. And that's what we want to see. That's what we want to see. Your school is the asset in the community. And we talk a lot about in prevention, about engaging assets in the community. We've engaged the school, and you're engaging inspirational young people, young leaders who will lead the future populations. And I often quote American singer-songwriter John Mayer, and he's written a lovely song called "Waiting for the World to Change." And one of the lines in that song, it's one day a generation will rule a population. I don't like the word rule, so I take that out and I put lead a population. And that's what we're seeing with the young mentors through MVP. So for everybody watching this program, if you want to learn more about the MVP program, I would recommend you go and check out Jackson Katz's MVP website. That's www.mvpstrat.com, mvpstrat.com. Or if you just put my name in, grahamgoulden.com, you'll get a link to my website. You'll find more information about the program, and you can get in touch with me that way. So thank you for taking the time today to look at this, to listen to this conversation and the other ones that we've done around the MVP program.